I can't think of a more amazing thing that could happen than Scott Jennings getting into politics, not just on the media side of things, but now like in the actual political sphere where he would be running for office. I would be sad to see him go because the only good thing really about the mainstream media right now is Scott Jennings. His slams on the liberals are so precise and just so perfect. Every time you watch the guy talk, you feel just elated. It's like, you know how they have those meditation YouTube videos that you can listen to for hours? Well, I could listen to Scott Jennings for hours as a sort of meditation for a conservative, hearing liberals get absolutely obliterated in their arguments. He's so good at it. And now his next potential move in his career could be huge. This is from the Daily Mail. CNN Black Sheep Scott Jennings plots daring career move that'll have liberal viewers seething. He could be taking over Mitch McConnell's seat in the Senate in Kentucky because he is from Kentucky. So I won't bury the lead here. That is the rumor that is going on right now. But CNN Scott Jennings might soon say goodbye to the station, but his next daring move is set to leave liberal viewers seething. Jennings, affectionately referred to as the black sheep of the left-leaning network, could potentially run to become a 2026 GOP contender. He told this to the Daily Beast. And yes, this is why I continually refer to MSNBC as the new CNN. And it's mostly because of Scott Jennings. CNN, of course, was brutally mocked for years because they were one of the worst they were one of the media companies that lied more than just about any of them. They were so bad, and I believe that they like almost went into bankruptcy. They had to sell their headquarters, and then they were bought out by some guy. I don't remember all the details. And then they brought on Scott Jennings. Scott Jennings came on, and all of a sudden there was a reason to watch CNN. And now MSNBC is the new CNN, and CNN is the old CNN, meaning that they're just not as horrible to watch anymore. MSNBC is just, total garbage. They can't bring on someone that balances out their liberal views because their liberal views are just crazy. You know, they have no checks and balances to the stuff that comes out of their mouth. Like the illogical dribble that comes from their mouth. It's just total Trump hate, total conservative hate, it's continuous race baiting. Nothing really of value whatsoever. Used to be how CNN was. And then they hire this guy and he's so effective at what he does. It made them almost decent to watch. Although he would love to see the next senator from Kentucky, or he would love to be the next senator from Kentucky, he said he will support what Donald Trump wants. Quote, if he wants somebody else, I'll support that candidate, he told the Daily Mail. When asked if he thinks his name and others would still be in the running come next year, Jennings said he is confident Trump will still have a standing over Republicans despite the president's low approval ratings in his first 100 days in office. According to the outlet, Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance seem to have already chosen who they think will replace Senator Mitch McConnell after the 83-year-old announced his retirement in February. And I got to say, I'm happy to see Mitch McConnell go. I don't know exactly how Scott Jennings would be as opposed to Mitch McConnell, but I feel like, it can't get much worse than Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell was like the face of the rhinos. He was someone that had just been in office for so long. It just became almost laughable. And he would reach across the aisle almost too much. He would work with the Democrats. He was friends with them. And it was just when you get that type of fraternization between parties, and I understand they're all in Washington, D.C., they've got to rub shoulders and all of that. But when you get too familiar with each other on opposing ideological views, you kind of get separated from reality and the reality of most of Americans. And you start kind of working for your own group within the parties. Because at the end of the day, It's the senators or representatives. You guys are all in Washington hashing it out. And it's easy to quickly forget the real American down there, the blue collar, working to survive, paying his taxes, and just trying to get by with himself and his family. And I believe that is a lot of congressmen and representatives in Washington, D.C. today. And I believe that's what happened to McConnell. You just lose sight of the average American and why you're in Washington, D.C. in the first place. But McConnell served Kentucky since 1984. And according to businessman Nate Morris, the last thing Kentucky needs is another puppet for Mitch McConnell running for office. So we got Scott Jennings. He did show up at a couple of Trump's rallies. Quote, if you're asking for a permission slip to run for office here in Kentucky from Mitch McConnell, then you shouldn't be running in the first place, Morris said on X. Morris has also been touted as a possible contender. And according to a veteran GOP political consultant, Jennings might have good standing with Trump, but that doesn't mean he'll get the job. Quote, I can't imagine Trump endorsing Jennings against Morris, even if Jennings is a good TV presence. On Tuesday evening, Jennings joined Trump on stage during a Michigan rally celebrating the president's first 100 days in the White House. So that is it's a decent little indicator that maybe there's some stuff in the works for Scott Jennings. I believe he runs, he wins. I mean, he's got such a good presence on TV. His clips, every single time a new Scott Jennings clip comes out, it goes completely viral. It's pretty impressive, actually. Trump gave Jennings a generous introduction to the boisterous partisan Michigan crowd. Quote, we have a man here that I don't know, but he's defending me all the time on CNN, and he defends me really well, Trump said. The president joked that Jennings can't take it too far, but added that it's amazing how he can get it right or take it right to the edge for their left-leaning audience. Quote, he really does a good job. I think he's terrific. As he waited for Jennings to take the stage, he joked about what it would mean for his career at CNN. He says, this is the end of Scott. It really would be. I mean, Scott Jennings is such a beloved figure on CNN, not to, obviously, to the hosts or the people that are actually on CNN, but to the viewers. Because for so long, those media outlets went unchecked. They would just spew their ideologies, and there would be nobody really to push back unless it was just maybe some rhino that really just did bare minimum pushback. Someone who just really didn't challenge them too much. They just kind of gave the basic challenges that you might hear at a surface level. That's not Scott Jennings. Scott Jennings gets a lot deeper in his challenges, and he doesn't pull any punches whatsoever. He goes for maximum effectiveness, and you can see it in their faces. I mean, I've seen it where Scott Jennings is talking to some of these CNN hosts, and they get visibly upset, angry. Their voice starts to shake. You can see that they are just stumped, backed into a corner. And this is a regular occurrence when Scott Jennings is talking to these CNN hosts. It's quite a thing to watch. Jennings told the crowd, this is in Michigan, we were flying in here today, and I said, look at all these farms. I got to get a farm in Michigan because when you own as many libs as I do, you got to get a place to put them all. That's funny. I mean, he is a funny guy. I believe he's a consultant. He has a consulting firm, and I think he's worked for several different administrations. I think he worked for the Bush administration at some point, but he then thanked the audience and gave a final handshake to a beaming Trump. The father of four and grandson of a Democrat elected official has recently made headlines for his opposing Republican views on CNN's Newsnight. Quote, often the show sort of comes down to several people versus Scott. This is exactly how it comes down to. Part of my job here is honestly to help translate from Red America. I got to admit, I was a little bit suspicious of Scott Jennings at first. I thought, there's no way this guy that CNN is bringing on is actually going to kind of shoot straight. Because a lot of times you have these commentators, they come on and they'll have like this certain agenda, and you can kind of sniff it out really quickly. Jennings, so far, I can't really tell what his agenda is, other than he is kind of almost like a mouthpiece for your everyday American. He's so good at it. And it's weird for me to see because I know he is a consultant. He's been in the political arena for a long time. And usually those types of people, they kind of forget how to relate to an everyday American. Scott Jennings, though, he hasn't. And it's pretty impressive. His coverage of President Trump's reelection and his defense of his policies and allies has welcomed the Republican Party viewpoint to CNN, boosting the outlet's ratings and viewership. In June, prior to the show turning to a roundtable discussion format, Newsnight averaged 485,000 viewers. So far this year, the show attracted about 500,000 viewers, according to the Wall Street Journal. In July alone, the show brought in 669,000 viewers, and in October, just before the election, it attracted 717,000 viewers. So just by having this guy who kind of gives a common sense perspective on things, they boosted their viewership by a couple 100,000 a month. So that's got to show you something, right? I believe a lot of these liberal outlets and the mainstream media shows, I feel like a lot of them are kind of artificially propped up. The numbers aren't exactly real. They inflate these things, kind of like these fake protests that we see, or these protests that we see for Tesla and protesting Trump's policies. You'll look at these protests and you'll wonder, how did all of these people just pop up here randomly? It's a lot of people. They all have these signs that they picked up somewhere along the way. Some of the signs are very similar. And you'll kind of get the inkling that maybe these protests aren't exactly grassroots. Maybe these protests are paid. And I kind of get the same sense with a lot of liberals on not just mainstream media, but YouTube shows as well, where you'll see these YouTube shows and some of them will get millions of views. And you'll wonder why. I feel like a lot of these numbers are artificially inflated. Although some of his critics have torn into Jennings for the apparent shift, CNN host Van Jones has branded Jennings a genius that Republicans who tune into CNN love to hate. The genius of Scott is that he somehow has managed to be the Republican that all CNN watchers love to hate. The Processive Democrat said, adding emphasis on the love. I mean, it's kind of hard to hate Scott Jennings. He says stuff usually with a smile. He's pretty cheery, and he makes sense. That's the most important thing of all. Scott Jennings, when he talks, he just makes sense. And you could see it click in their minds, but the years of brainwashing from the Democrat Party is causing like a visceral reaction in their body to where they do not want to admit what he's saying is logical and makes sense. That's the only way I could really think to describe it. Jennings previously served as a White House aide reporting to Karl Rove. See, I'm not a big fan of Karl Rove, and was a longtime advisor to Senator McConnell, who aided in several re-election campaigns and also helped Bush win New Mexico in the 2004 election. Outside his job at CNN, Jennings is also a contributing columnist for Daily Mail, helps run Switch PR. So this is his public relations consulting firm here in his home state, a crisis communications firm, and recently joined the Los Angeles Times editorial board. So he owns a crisis communications firm. So I'm assuming that's what happened whenever CNN asked for his help. They're like, hey, we're in crisis and we need someone to communicate to actual Americans. And Scott Jennings was like, say no more. I got you. Because CNN just had a massive misalignment with everyday Americans, kind of like you see with MSNBC now. MSNBC, they appealed to kind of like the lowest common denominator, it feels like. Everything is racist. Everything is victimized. And what American wants to watch that? There is a small subset of Americans that like that kind of stuff. And they are the guilty, liberal white woman and they are a certain demographic who just wants to feel like they are the victims and everybody owes them something. That type of person usually is not going to be the most successful, you know, and it's not, I wouldn't say a majority of Americans. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think of Scott Jennings potentially running for Senate in Kentucky? Would you vote for him if you lived in Kentucky? Let me know down below in the comments what you think. Like and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.